Okay, so it is 7 o'clock. Are we rolling?
We are.
All right. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. First order of business, please, if you have cell phones with you, put them on silent mode so that they don't disrupt the meeting. And second, please join me in Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So welcome everybody that's here this evening. Glad to see so many of you. And also welcome to those watching on YouTube later on. I'm going to start with introductions. I'm Lisa Whalen, I'm the mayor. And to my left are council members Kathleen Refkin, Ann McGregor, Peter Vickery, and Claudia Lacey. And then on the end we have our city engineer, Allison Fauski, our director of administration, Ali Pulfus, and then our city clerk, Ann Meyerhoff. To my right, I have our city administrator, Jasper Krugel. Then Brian Grimm is our finance director. And then sitting in for our regular, if you will, attorney, Sarah Sonsala is on vacation. So Ron Beatty is back with us with 10 Indian Graven. Thank you for coming, Ron. Nice to see you again. And then we have our chief of police, Paul Falls. With that, next order of business is to approve the agenda. Are there any changes or additions? If none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Lacey. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Vickery. Any other questions? All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. So what we're going to do this evening, this is a little change from what we normally do for street projects. We've normally held a neighborhood meeting and invited all of you here and giving you the information, but we were somewhat under a time crunch this time, and so what we decided to do is have the neighborhood meeting here this evening during our regular meeting. Allison Fauski, our city engineer who's in charge of the project, will give you an overview of what the project is, and then afterwards I'll open it up. If you have questions, please feel free. You might have to come to the podium so that we can catch you on camera. And then if you don't want to come to the podium but you have questions, we have cards in the back. You can write them down. We'll collect those. And if you want to leave your name and number on those, then we can call you and give you your answers. So with that, Allison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before you this evening, we have Miss Emily Brown. She is in the assistant city engineer role here in Minnetrista, and she would be the project manager for this project should council authorize proceeding with this project. And Emily would like to give a presentation to the council, staff, and the residents present about the proposed project.
Thank you. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, members of the City Council, for having me here tonight. I'll be going through the 2025 street improvement project as it's proposed. And just for the folks here in the room, we do have those comment cards in the back. We also have a sign-in sheet and some frequently asked questions available for you to peruse if you'd like. Or otherwise, you can pick them up after the meeting here. There we go. Little project background. So we're looking at focusing on improving the street conditions throughout the city. The streets were evaluated based on the condition of the pavement surface, and the city did obtain pavement cores throughout these project areas to help determine the structural stability of the in-place pavement. The streets we're looking at are Windridge Trail, Pine Circle, Trillium Lane, and Trillium Way. The existing conditions, so Pine Circle was built in the 1970s. It's experiencing alligator cracking and potholes. This was demonstrated with the cores and just visual inspection of the existing pavement. Trillium area, this was built in 1994. The asphalt is starting to lose bond to the aggregates, and when we did cores, you could tell that the top surface of the pavement was starting to debond from the underlying layers of pavement.
Emily, just put on your microphone.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you.
hopefully that's a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then Windridge Trail, this was built in the mid-90s, and the base layer is starting to fail. All of these are early warning signs for a pavement failure, and it's good to catch it at this point in time to try and make improvements. which is what we're proposing here. Otherwise, it's more of a structural issue down the road. So what we're looking at is a full-depth reclamation. Here in this picture off to the right, you can see the reclaimer. This machine polarizes the existing pavement and blends it into the underlying aggregate base. This provides a nice recycled material that can be used as a base for the new pavement section. For the street improvements, we're proposing that the existing street widths remain the same, and the street grades will closely match what the existing pavement grades are. This will allow us to match into existing driveways and match the drainage patterns that are already there. We may make some minor improvements to either the profile to help improve drainage if needed. For the Trillium area, which has curb and gutter, we'd be doing spot curb and gutter repair. Areas that are cracked or settled would be the main target with that improvement. For Pine Circle, we're looking to remove the cul-de-sac island and pave over that to make it more of a true cul-de-sac. And then for Wind Ridge, we're looking at the addition of a narrow aggregate shoulder. Utility improvements, so we'd be installing inflow and infiltration barriers, I&I for short. This is for the sanitary manholes. What this does is it helps prevent water intrusion into sanitary manholes. Basically, you're trying to not treat stormwater. You're focusing on sanitary with sanitary sewer systems. And then we also have a leaking valve at Trillium Way and Trillium Lane that would be repaired with the project. For the project cost, the city budget for the proposed improvements is approximately $1.6 million. The majority of that would be in the surface and drainage improvements. That's just under $1.5 million. And then sanitary and water main improvements totaling just over 100, or right around 140,000. As part of the preliminary design, we'd be looking at a more detailed scope of the projected project costs. The City of Minnetrista assessment policy, so the portion of the cost would be assessed to benefiting property owners per the city's assessment policy, and that follows statute chapter 429. These historically have been 50% of the project costs. The project costs associated with the surface and stormwater improvements would be assessed, while the city would be covering the cost for sanitary, sewer, and water utility improvements. There are hardship deferrals available for senior citizens, disabled persons, members of the National Guard or military reserves, and the payment period is typically 20 years. Assessment questions and more information on any type of deferrals could be directed to the Finance Director, Brian Grimm, and his contact information is there. Project schedule. So tonight we have our project presentation. The City Council decides to move forward with the project. We would plan on having the feasibility report presented to Council on October 21st, at which time the Council can call the public hearing. We would look to have the public hearing in November, and if the Council so chooses, move forward with plans and specifications at that time. The bid opening would be anticipated for the beginning of February, and then the assessment hearings would be following that later in February. Construction would be anticipated between June and September of 2025. However, the construction for this type of project would be a shorter duration of that. We'd be working with the contractor to get a more detailed schedule once we have them on board, with the expectation that the total construction duration would not entail that entire time. For the public engagement, we want your input. If you have specific roadway or utility questions, we recommend reaching out. Safety questions, street section questions, or funding questions, or comments. The city has provided a website. You can see that at the bottom of the screen here. You can also sign up for emails that would have been on your postcard that you received prior to the meeting tonight as well. So far, we've had 4 residents who sign up for email updates. That is a great way for us to keep in touch with you, especially during construction, so we highly recommend that you sign up for the emails. There are comment cards in the back of the room. Again, please fill one of those out if you have some comments or concerns about the project. Otherwise, we can hang out after the meeting here today.
No, we're going to take questions now during the meeting.
Yes.
So, right,
Yeah.
as soon as you're done with your presentation. Thank you.
Questions and answers. So we do have a frequently asked questions in the back handout. I recommend taking those, and then I'll stand for any questions the council or any residents may have.
Council, do you have any questions right now? I think we'll take comments, I think, from the public. So I guess you could sit down, I think. Right? So questions. I'll start with that gentleman in the back. You'll have to come forward and speak in the microphone so it's recorded. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And can you give us your name and address?
I certainly can.
Thank
My name
you.
is Brant Palazza, and I live at 6135 Pine Circle. And if I may, I've got some handouts. May I pass this out to the group?
Sure, yes.
Where should I, anywhere?
Start there. Yeah, that's
I've
good.
got 3 copies. They're all the same thing. They're photo maps from the Hennepin County Interactive Map website. And the first page is just an overview of the Pine Circle area. It's an aerial map. On the second page, I've included the copy of the map that has the property lines drawn on it. The reason why I'm here is I wanted to address the idea of the center island in Pine Circle. There are a couple reasons why the residents of Pine Circle want that island to remain. Several of them are aesthetic reasons. It's a beautiful little island. Second reason is kids love to play on it. Most importantly, I'd like to bring up 2 points. Let's start with the children again. If you look at the map, there are the first 2 homes as you drive off of County 44 onto Pine Circle. Those first 2 homes are the homes of very young children, both preschool and also elementary school age. Okay, for them to play in the street, ride their bikes, whatever, their parents have trained them very, very well. They do not ride their bikes very close to 44. Vehicles come flying in off that street, and there's kids right there. So what the kids do, the kids go back into Pine Circle where the circle is. Now my home is at the lower right-hand side of the page. So what I've done is on the very last page, I've taken pictures from my Ring camera. And these are from today, these are from this weekend, showing the children. Now they go back there, there's 2 benefits to having that island. One is it's a safe place for the kids. When cars come into that area, the kids know, get onto a side lawn or get into the circle. And you can watch them do that, they're very good at it. Second reason for that circle is it slows down traffic, okay? We see all the Amazon drivers come through, all the delivery drivers come through, and they would fly through there, and they have. What that circle does is it slows them down significantly. And so we, for a safety reason, are pretty adamant. We very, very much want that center island to stay. Any questions for me?
I can keep it. Is there a reason it needs to be removed? Thank you, Madam Mayor, if I may. So the discussion about removing the cul-de-sac island came from a maintenance standpoint for snow plowing operation. It's very cumbersome. So that's why we included it as a proposed scope, and certainly look for this kind of feedback from residents on why they see a benefit so that we can have these discussions and then look at what a final scope for the project would be with, whether that island would remain or not.
I think it would be nice if it could be made.
Is there a fire truck issue?
No.
I think, like, in a cul-de-sac that size, I don't think that there would be, it wouldn't be able to allow a fire truck to maneuver through it. It would likely go in and then back right out. So from that standpoint, I don't see that as an improvement.
I will say, from a snow removal standpoint, a large snow truck cannot get in there. And so the city, and I've actually come to the city several times to just commend the driver that does come back there. He's in a pickup truck sized vehicle
Right.
with a small plow, does a wonderful job, plows a lot of the snow right on top of the center island, which makes for great forts for the kids.
And I know we have several streets in our community where they have to use a pickup truck for plowing too.
I live
So-
right off of County Road 44, and you can't ride your bike on County Road 44. I think
No,
this
you
is
cannot.
a wonderful thing, and I commend these parents. These kids have helmets on, and it does definitely slow people down to go around that little island.
certainly
So
does.
thank you for coming in and sharing this with us.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else wish to come forward and ask questions, have comments? Next row.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Bill Kennedy, and I live at 4250 Trillium Lane East. I'm also president of our homeowners association. And I had a few questions just about the project. Back, I think, in 2017, we had a resurfacing done where they take a couple inches off the top. I think reprocess the material and resurface the road. Given the fact that our road apparently originated in 1994, what was the cost value benefit of doing that now that 7 years later we appear to have, subsurface problems that cause us to resurface the road? So I'm, just for my own benefit, what's the logic in doing that to be followed not too much longer in the future by a total resurface?
Madam Mayor, so I'm not aware of I think what was likely done in 2017, and I apologize, I don't have the whole pavement history there, it would be a seal coat where they put the oil on top and it's
No.
chips. It was,
No, it was a grinder, and
Really?
they went down an inch or two and then repaved the whole road.
the entire roadway.
Mhm.
I'm not aware of that. That predates my time.
Dean, am I correct? Well, we had just moved in. Yeah. We had just moved in
Yeah.
a year before, so we were kind of aware of what was, going on. And
Well, you know what we did do in some roads, we did what's called an overlay, if you remember. We did some off of Game Farm Road, we did overlays, so that's not a complete mill and overlay. It's like about an inch to an inch and a half. And what that, correct me if I'm wrong, but what that does, and this may have happened on the street you're talking about, what that does is it basically prolongs the life of the road by anywhere from 7 to 10 years. Am I correct?
Yes, and certainly when we look at the age of these roads, we're getting to be 30 years. So this type of improvement, not only from the cores, but also from an age standpoint in the Trillium area, it fits that, a resurfacing project, which was what we originally were looking at for Trillium, and then we got the cores back and saw that the pavement was deteriorated to a point that would not be a cost-effective solution. So certainly there's, in the lifespan of a road, something that was done 7 to 10 years ago, there's good maintenance that occurs, but something that's done 7 years ago doesn't mean that that it'll last for a really long time.
And I guess it wasn't the intent of my question
Okay.
to ask like it was going to, prolong it by 20 years. But it kind of leads into the second question is that, it's a relatively small road. Those of us with pets are walking dogs and so forth. And for the most part, there's a few areas where there may be an area about that big that has the surface eroded, but it's not too terribly deep. So I don't know if you've explained it already, but is age the determining factor when they want to or suggest resurfacing a road, or is it, and you mentioned core samples, but I guess from a lot of our perspectives, some patches looks like we'd be able to get quite a few more years out of it. And I'm no asphalt expert. I wanted to make sure I spoke correctly. But I was, just curious from people who are more knowledgeable about it than I am, is there any logic to that?
Well, there is, actually. So from previous engineers, they've told us that when you do a reclamation project, it actually avoids having to do a complete reconstruction. So that's maybe, and I'll let you weigh in here too, so that's maybe why we're doing the reclamation project right now. A reconstruction is where you remove everything and then basically start over. And the reclamation is where you, as Emily was saying, where you grind it up and then you do a resurfacing. And what that does is it's cheaper than a full depth reconstruction. And because we're doing that, that will avoid having to do that full depth reconstruction. If we waited, and then we may have to go to that full depth reconstruction.
And Mayor Whalen, if I may too, and in hindsight, I should have included this in the slide deck as well, so that residents, to explain the process that we go through as staff when we look at pavement conditions. So the city does gets the roadway surfaces evaluated every 3 years. And so that's just a visual, what's happening on the surface of the road, how many cracks are we seeing, what kind. And that's our first indication as staff as far as, well, what should we look at doing? Should we look at crack filling the seal coat, which is a maintenance? Do we think a resurfacing, which would be a mill and overlay, is a good option here? Or do we need to look at something more structural? And so then the next step in that process is to get pavement cores. And I actually brought one here, and I'm happy to pass it around. This is actually a Trillium, just off County Road 44. And some of the council members here, I brought this into a council meeting. But I think it's a good visual to show what's happened. So this is the top of the road. This is what you see. And this is what happened with some of the cores that were taken here. It's coming off. So what's happening, as Emily mentioned, is the bond between the black part of the pavement structure it's losing its bond with the rocks. And so that's what our pavement folks go and take a look at when they get cores throughout these streets that we're proposing for a project, to tell us, is a resurfacing project a good idea here? And when we got these cores back, it was no, because it's starting to fall apart through here. And that's what the reclamation project, that's what.
So how far, when the reclamation project is decided upon, how deep does it reclaim?
It goes through the whole, here, I'll just, so I'm not making noise while I'm talking. It takes the whole pavement and then into the first part of the class 5 or the gravel structure that's underneath the road. And it blends it together, and then part of that is taken off because you're curb and gutter in Trillium, for example. In other areas, you can just leave that reclaimed surface on there and pave on top of it. But because we have curb and gutter in that area, some of that reclamation material will have to come off before they put the new pavement on top. But it provides a new rock structure underneath the roadway to keep because otherwise, if you just do resurfacing, any cracks that were, well, not most cracks that were on the pavement surface start to reflect through if you just overlay on with that new pavement on top.
Okay. And,
Wait,
I'm sorry.
I was messaging with Gary, I think everybody knows Gary. He said that a small section of Trillium was done in 2017. It was just a patch job, but it was a mill and overlay along with the Lotus Drive project. So it wasn't anything extensive throughout the neighborhood. He said it was like maybe a 50-foot section, and that was about it. From his recollection while he's on vacation. So I think we got to the bottom of it. So it wasn't a big project for the whole neighborhood, but just a small section.
Okay, just two more questions, both of which are probably related. Any idea about how the resident impact from a financial standpoint is going to be calculated? Is it by frontage foot of a lot, or is it the neighborhood divided by how many lots are in the neighborhood? How do they come up with that assessment calculation?
So our policy is on a per lot basis, not on a per foot frontage basis. And we just went through an analysis, if you will, last year to determine what the value would be for another project that we did. So we'll probably be looking at that report to determine so it probably won't be a set 50% assessment, because we determined for the other project that we did last year that 50% assessment was way too high and it exceeded the value increase to your property. So we did between 9,000 and 11,000. I think we ended up at 10,000 per lot for the assessment. So you're probably looking at, I'm guessing, don't hit me if I'm wrong, but somewhere right around there is what I'm guessing will be the assessment.
Well, I understand that, but does that mean that the neighborhoods that are impacted by this project are going to be treated the same?
Mayor Whalen, if I may. So typically when we've had projects with different areas, we've created and presented to council separate assessment rules for each project area. So Pine Circle would have an assessment calculation separate from Trillium, separate from Windridge, because of the nature of each project. Trillium is a curb and gutter, single-family residential. Pine Circle doesn't have curb and gutter. Windridge is rural residential, no curb and gutter, large lots. So that's how we've typically presented them to council, unless we start seeing that they're very close in cost. But given the three areas, I would be surprised if that's the case. I would anticipate 3 different assessments.
And while I can understand the rationale behind that, I guess rewording the question, would we be treated the same way as other neighborhoods that have curb and gutter if that's comparable to our neighborhood?
Yeah, the report that we did last year was a neighborhood that got curb and gutter.
Okay. But so
Yeah.
that would be the same
Yeah,
treatment?
not treated the same as a rural neighborhood.
Okay. At this point in time, my last question, is the payout period on that for residents up to 20 years? And
Correct.
do you have any idea what the interest rate application would be for this?
We don't, because it depends on our bond, and then we go about 2% above the bond that we take out. So if the bond is 4%, then the percentage would be 6% on 20 years.
What was the last bond that the city did as a comparable, realizing we can't predict the future?
Right, 3.7, 3.7, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We're hoping it goes down.
Okay. All depends on November. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, anybody else? Dean? Oh, wait, okay.
Roger Schmidt, 4350 Trillium Lane West. If you did patch and another seal coat, how many years would you expect that to be?
It's a great, I wish I had a crystal ball, I could tell you. So the challenge that we have if we try to resurface it is, and we've encountered this before, unfortunately, sometimes the road, when you go and grind it up, sometimes the road doesn't stand up to that, and you end up having to do a reclamation, and that's why we get the cores. So if you were to go and do a resurfacing and the road bed underneath it were able to withstand it, you'd see those cracks reflecting through within a couple of years. So you would still get a new pavement, but you'd be seeing cracks a lot sooner than you would with a reclamation project.
Yeah,
So it's a subjective answer, I think, is what I'm trying to get at.
If the water penetrates the seal
Right.
coat, then you get these punches about an inch deep. So
Yes.
that's what I have.
Ron? Yeah.
Ron Klein, 7750 Windridge Trail. What is the estimated lifespan of this project?
To do the project, or how long will it last?
How long will it last?
So what we typically see, I'll give you it's going to be a long answer. So we'll do a reclamation project, and then a few years after that, we seal the cracks and typically do like a seal coat or a rejuvenator. That's a maintenance operation,
Right.
not assessed to the residents. And then the next time you would see like a resurfacing would be maybe 10 years later, and then maybe another 10 years after that. After some more crack filling, you'd see another overlay. So you start seeing, anywhere from, we try to get 30 plus years out of a reclamation project, if not more, if we're able to get those cracks filled and keep the water from intruding. And the city has also been using, it's called I won't bore you with the details, but it's a rejuvenator product to try to even get a longer lifespan out of these roads. And so we've started doing that on these roads where we're doing reclamation projects to extend that
So
life.
it'd be roughly 30 years before you'd assess again?
If not longer, yes.
Okay. Then there was a mention of adding a gravel shoulder on Windridge. We're currently all butting up to the roadway with our lawns, and wondered what the rationale was for that.
So typically what we look at is to have that little bit of a buffer so you don't have vegetation growing up right to the edge of the road. And I wasn't there when Windridge was put in, because typically when a rural road is installed, they usually do have some gravel there, and then over the years, the lawn might kind of encroach and go right up to the road. And so the idea is to just provide that little bit of a buffer, if you will, from the edge of the pavement to the lawn, so that, you know, somebody in the winter especially goes off the edge of that road, if they're not going on your lawn. They have that gravel road, and it's a structural, it's compacted, and it's hard to keep the edge of that pavement secure and in place instead of breaking off.
Do you have to do that, though? I mean, if the residents would prefer it not? I mean, Windridge, there's what, 5 homes? 7 homes on that road? I mean,
I would recommend it to a certain extent that we have at least something there so that we don't have pavement right up next to vegetation.
Okay.
Because we want to keep that road in a good condition as long as possible.
And I know you're looking at the budget in total. What's the Windridge portion of the budget?
I don't have that in front of me, but that's certainly something that when we come through with that feasibility report, we'll have that estimate. And it's at that point, too, that we would have some preliminary assessment numbers for the council to consider. And after that's presented in the feasibility report, as Emily mentioned, there is a public hearing, and that information is shared in the notice of the public hearing.
Great, thank you.
so in that preliminary design or report is due when again, Emily?
October timeframe. It's usually a couple of months from the time.
The second meeting in October, right?
Correct.
Okay. So if you're interested, you can either watch it later on or you can come to the meeting too. So, okay.
Sign up for updates too.
Yeah.
And
right.
that's a good way to get notified if there's new information available on the project website.
And those costs usually obviously get, or analyzed more during the design. So right now the estimate is the early estimate. And
Yes.
And, yeah.
Exactly, yes. Yep.
Mr. Johnson?
Just a quick question.
Yeah. Come to the microphone so yeah.
So if I heard you right, is this, will this actually be payable in 2026 for a 2025 project, or will it be payable at the end of 2025?
There'll be correspondence sent out. Basically, the project will be done in 25, and then for those that choose to pay it all off, it'll be due November 1st of 2025 if they want to avoid any interest. They can make a partial payment in the first year, but after that, it'll be at the interest rate is 5.5%, and it'll be sent to the county for collection over 20 years.
But you would anticipate to,
2026.
Yes.
you would anticipate to be sending the bill out at the end of 2025?
So if you wanted to pay it in full, you'd have to pay it by November 1st of 2025.
And
Okay.
there'll be letters sent out to that
Yeah.
effect when the assessment roll is adopted, and then we usually send October 1st, a 30-day reminder that, hey, if this isn't paid by November 1st, in 25, it'll be on your 2026 taxes starting that first.
Okay, yeah. Because I'm sure that's what one of the questions neighbors are going to be
Sure, yeah.
be asking. So,
And you
okay.
can pay it off at any time after that, too. In full. Yeah.
We won't take partial payments once it's at the county, or we can't take partial payments.
I thought that you could pay.
First year you can make a partial payment, but once it's at the county, they don't want to send it out a bunch of someone paid
Oh.
$100,000, someone paid, it's just on the county until it's paid out. They can always pay out in full here.
That's what I'm saying. They can pay off in full.
Full, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
at any time. That's what I was saying, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. All right, other questions? I think, did you sign up, the gentleman on Pine Circle, did you sign this? Okay, so you already spoke, so you're good? All right. Anybody else have questions? Because if you have cards and you wrote questions down, Emily will grab those from you. If you'd like her to give you a call, please put your name and number on those questions. Then they can talk to you individually, offline, if we will. And again, if you want to come back for the October, whatever date, 21st, well, we can also give you some more questions. We'll have another question and answer time if you want. Okay. And you can stay for the rest of the meeting, too, if you'd like.
Thank you for coming.
All right. Thank you for coming. All right. Yeah. So we'll move on then to our consent agenda items. And there's cards, too, at the back for business cards for Allison and Emily, too. So if you want to grab one, feel free. All right. So we'll move on to consent agenda items. Approve the work session meeting minutes from August 5th, 2024. Approve our city council regular meeting minutes from August 5th, 2024. A resolution to approve claims. D is a resolution to reimbursement for a reimbursement resolution for water treatment plant project. And E is a resolution for a reimbursement resolution for equipment certificates. F is accept improvements and authorize final payment for the 2024 overlay project. That's city project number 01-24. And G is a resolution to accept improvements and authorize final payment for the 2024 seal coat project, which is part of city project number 0224. And then H is accept the resignation of the community service officer, Jack Rodine, effective yesterday of 2024. Any questions? You want to pull any of these? If none, is there a motion to approve consent agenda items A through H? Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Gregor. Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 5-0.
Madam Mayor, do you want to do a persons to be heard?
There was nobody signed up.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, except
just
I
didn't
mentioned
catch
that before. Brandt on Pine Circle, and I asked him,
Okay.
and he said he had already
Perfect.
spoken.
I didn't
Yeah.
know if that was part of the project. Thank
Yep.
you.
Sorry. Next, public hearings. We have approved an amendment to interim ordinance number 484, authorizing a study imposing a moratorium on the operation of cannabis businesses within the city of Minnetrista. Who is going to take this? Ron?
Ron can explain this very, very eloquently, so
Okay.
I'll have Ron do it.
Madam Mayor, Council, as you remember, last year in 2023, the legislature legalized the possession and use of cannabis and adopted a very lengthy statute, 300 and some pages. And in response, Minnetrista and many other cities imposed a moratorium on actually going into any of the businesses that will be authorized. The statute allows you to impose a moratorium that extended through January 1st of 2025, which is longer than the standard 12-month moratoria that we've been dealing with. And so you did that. One of the things that happened in the 2024 legislature is that there were a number of amendments. One of them was that 3 of the 14 businesses that were listed as cannabis businesses and that were subject to the moratorium were taken out of the definition. There were 14, now the statute only lists 11 businesses that are considered cannabis businesses. Basically, they were the medical marijuana ones. There is an argument, I don't think a particularly good one, but there's an argument that because of that legislative change, that cities that adopted a moratorium under the old statute, that moratorium doesn't apply to the 3 businesses that are no longer defined as cannabis businesses. So what you've got in front of you is sort of it is a belts and suspenders approach to say, oh yes, it does. You can read through the amendment, of course, as you had, but it's to reaffirm that if anyone is thinking that there's now a loophole between now and January 1st, that's not true. So this reaffirms that the moratorium that you adopted last year continues to apply to all 14 businesses.
But we can't extend it for another year.
That's correct. The statute gave, gave everybody, 15 months or something,
Yeah.
something longer
I think it
than
was
that.
18, yeah.
So, with the idea that things would be up and running by January 1st of 2025, and that was really to allow cities to put into effect whatever kind of zoning or other regulations they wanted to do. And so this moratorium, the statutory moratorium from that statute cannot be extended beyond that date. One of the other belts and suspenders pieces in here, if you read this, was that we're sort of piggybacking that moratorium on the regular 462 kind of moratorium that you're used to. That is limited to a year, but that also is going to expire January 1st of 25. And that's, again, just in case a court ever found that our attempts to extend the moratorium to include those other three businesses didn't work under the cannabis statute, well, we've taken the approach of now doing a more traditional 462 moratorium. Long story short, the moratorium, if you adopt it, will simply extend everything till January 1st, 2025.
Thank you. Questions?
Do we have any ordinances now regarding buffers, X amount of feet between a park or a school?
We don't, but we have started looking at what the local government user guide is that describes those that are in statute. Our community development department is working with WSB to develop some maps so we can kind of look at what parcels are affected to see if we need to try to go above and beyond. That'll be coming at a future meeting between now and January 1.
Now, one of the things I'm sorry, go ahead.
Would that include growing marijuana too?
You can already grow it now in your X amount in your yard. I mean,
Commercially grown,
Commercial
yes.
grown.
Yes, commercially grown, yes. Residentially or recreationally, no.
In fact, one of the reasons that we were recommending this amendment was because one of the three exceptions was to allow people to start commercial growing, and so the moratorium, if you adopt it, will preclude that. One of the reasons cities have been slow in adopting the kind of regulations that you're talking about is that the Office of Cannabis Management had to be set up, which took a while. They had to create a whole new department. We were waiting for them to adopt regulations. Well, it's only been in the last month that they've come out with draft regulations that we're still into a comment period until the end of August. We were also all waiting for them to produce a sample ordinance, and they produced one a couple of 3 or 4 weeks ago that it was 111 pages. One page dealt with the things that we are interested in. So did not give cities very much guidance. And so you're in the same position that most cities are. January 1st, 2025 seemed like a long time away when all this happened a year ago. It's getting much closer.
Yes,
And so,
it
yes,
is.
in the next couple of months, you'll be focused on all of those things. What districts do we want to put this in? Do we want to have some sort of setbacks? Do we want to take advantage of being able to limit the number of retail businesses in the community? All those things are going to be the focus of a package of ordinance amendments that will be brought before you in the next couple of months.
I found it unbelievable that you were given preference to own this business if you were a convicted felon, just of a drug crime. Yeah, just unbelievable. Who came up with that?
Well, let's focus on what we can do here tonight.
Just wanted to say it out loud for the record.
Okay. All right. So what we're so first of all, this is a public hearing. So any other questions of council or staff? Because otherwise, I'll open the public hearing. And if there's anybody here that wishes to speak for or against or have comments regarding the authorizing of the moratorium, you may do so at this time. Nobody's here for that, so you're not here for that, I assume. So I'm going to close the public hearing and take it back to council. Do you wish to approve an amendment for the interim ordinance number 484, authorizing a study and imposing a moratorium on the operation of cannabis businesses with the city of Minnetrista? Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Why did I think you would second that? Okay, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. And then I need a motion to authorize publication by title and summary. Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second? Okay, thank you, Mr. Vickery. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. So next we move on to our business items, and as this is accepting a donation of Outlot D in Hunter's Crest, 5th edition. Do you want to give us a brief overview? We talked about this at our work session.
Yeah.
It should be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of council, we have a group that owns a parcel in the Hunter's Crest 5th edition neighborhood that is wishing to donate that to the city. We discussed this at the work session. There is a donation agreement that has been reviewed by legal, and it's been given the approval of legal if we want to proceed. It has a closing date of December 20th, so we have a due diligence period between now and then to see if there's anything wrong with the property that we can demonstrate, and then if there is, we would then withdraw from the agreement. So it is a donation. We would then own it by fee title, and then we would be on the hook for future stormwater maintenance, which right now that pond is in pretty good shape. Probably 15, 20 years from now, there could be some work. I'd anticipate if that parcel to the south, if you're familiar with it, would ever develop, likely the developer would come and say, we want part of Outlot D to finish that development. So I don't think there's anything like that on the near horizon, but in the 15 to 50 year window, there probably maybe. So I believe that is the gist of it. If there are any other questions, I am here to answer, but we do have a resolution that would accept this donation and authorize us to enter into that donation agreement and then proceed with the due diligence period.
Okay, questions? Okay, hearing none, then is there a motion to accept the donation of Outlot D in Hunter's Crest 5th edition with a closing date of December 20th, doing due diligence in between time? Thank you, Mr. Vickery. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. So next, approve a professional service agreement for the design and bidding services for the 2025 street improvement project, which we discussed earlier in the meeting. Ms. Faust, anything you want to add to that?
No, I'll just give a quick recap for those that maybe weren't listening, who are listening after the fact and didn't hear the special presentation. The proposal for the City Project 2025 is reclamation of Pine Circle, the Trillium area, and Windridge Trail. There's no storm improvements proposed. It would be a sanitary sewer and water main. Work would be limited to installation of inflow and infiltration barriers in Pine Circle and the replacement of a leaking water valve at Trillium Way and Trillium Lane. The proposal before council this evening for consideration is for design services and then bidding services. And then at that point, after a bid opening, if the council awards the project, we would bring forward a proposal for construction administration purposes at that time. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you, Ms. Vosky. Questions? We had the presentation earlier, so we should be fairly well informed on it. Okay. Is there a motion to approve professional services agreement for the design and bidding services for the 2025 street improvement projects?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Lacy. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. So we'll move on to administrative items. We have staff reports. We have city clerk elections update.
Well, this will be really quick. As you all know, we had our state primary last Tuesday. And I'm just going to kind of give you the numbers. It was a slow day. At 7 a.m., we had 6,686 registered voters in Minnetrista. Combining all 4 precincts, the voter turnout was 527. So it's typical for a primary, so we expect it to be a lot higher in November.
Yeah.
So the general election is November 5th. Absentee voting begins September 20th. That's with the envelopes, and then the direct balloting begins October 18th. So,
Any updates on who's running for office at the city level?
well,
Highly contested.
so
We have two that filed for the two council seats
Yep.
and one that filed for the mayor seat.
Correct.
So, like Ellie said, highly contested. So, okay.
So.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Refkin is running again. I'm running again. And then, Ann, you won't be here next year, so. Yeah, thank you for your service, and of course, we'll recognize you again. And then we have a newcomer registered. So, with that, we have a update on the treatment plant.
Yes, I am filling in for Gary on this update. So design has continued. So they've had a pre-designed meeting as far as layout goes, and what we're really working on right now is figuring out the ingress and egress of the plant, and that'll really determine how that plant is situated on the parcel. We had a very good meeting with Three Rivers Park District, and they're basically verbalizing that we can continue to examine the entrance off of Lotus, and using that existing drainage and utility easement that we have for access to the road. We're also, to the plant, sorry. I was jumping ahead to Trunk Highway 7. The Trunk Highway 7 access, we're continuing to talk to MnDOT, but there's some additional challenges with topography and the overhead lines that may make it cost prohibitive to use that. So we're hopeful that the Lotus Drive ingress egress will work, and working through some of those details. But we're proceeding. The schedule that was proposed to the group, I think at the last meeting, we're on that schedule yet. So design will continue. Once we get the ingress egress figured out, then we can really start laying things out accordingly and start picking a way to get to 30% plans, and hopefully a much better engineer estimate that goes down.
Right.
So
Goes
we
down,
will see.
right.
But that's all I have for the water treatment plant update. We continue. You'll get a more formal project process update at the next meeting in September.
Okay, thank you. All right, any questions? Then we'll go on to council reports. Ms. Lacy, anything? No. Okay. Mr. Vickery? No. Nope. Well, so Jasper and I attended the last fire partnership meeting. It was interesting. And so, yeah, it's moving forward. Again, still slower than we thought. And there was a lot more discussion this time about why we're all here. And I think that needs to be made very clear and clarified, because I think some people from other cities were thinking, well, we could just tweak the organizational issues that we have and that we would be fine. And that's really not the case. I just want to make this clear, both city chiefs, both fire chiefs, both from Mound and St. Bonnie, are recommending a partnership. What that's going to look like, we don't know. It could be a district, it could be a JPA, Joint Powers Agreement, but they're recommending a Joint Powers, some kind of partnership. And the reason they're recommending that is if you look at St. Bonnie and Mound and all of the things that are kind of the trigger points, or the pressure points on these fire departments, what are they and why are we doing this? And it's recruitment, obviously. same as the police department, you know, they're having their issues as well. Even though they're staffed currently adequately, they're seeing the handwriting on the wall, and they can see that it's becoming more and more difficult because of the time commitment that's being required of firefighters. Then there's other also pressure points too, and I won't get into all of those, but we'll maybe put out a little blurb or page or whatever with all of the information that we talked about at the last meeting. So I just want to make sure that you're kept in the loop, and we didn't make a lot of progress, but we did decide on, we decided on the 8 or 9,
The first thing we did were the rules. We adopted the rules, and then we did the why. I think there were 17 originally, and then we broke them into 5 different groups, or 4 groups with an overbearing group name. So we made that progress, and then started talking about, well, what does this governmental model look like, and then it kind of went sideways. Yeah.
Right. So we need to kind of bring it back to the original reason why we're all there. So. Yeah. Yeah, the next one. Yeah. So that's really it. Do we need somebody for the planning commission? Do we have a planning commission meeting in August?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah,
Or we do.
we do.
Oh, we do. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So we will need somebody.
Okay.
99% sure.
Okay.
Nick said we do.
Okay.
I can probably do it. So unless somebody else is.
On here, I can do it.
You want to do it?
When is it?
The 26th, a week from today. Okay. Okay.
I'll let them know.
If that's not accurate, I'll message you, but I'm pretty sure there is.
Okay. All right. So with that, we can then be adjourned. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Ms. Refkin, is there a second? Thank you, Ms. McGregor. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. 5-0. And we are adjourned until our next meeting, which is actually September. It's a Wednesday. So just so you know, Wednesday, September 4th.